Rome, in the 1st century before Christ, was the center of an expanding empire and the mirror of all its contradictions. With every military victory in Hispania, Gaul, Macedonia, and the East, thousands of prisoners were brought to the Italian peninsula. Turned into slaves, they fed the economic and social machine that sustained the Republic. The Roman splendor, its temples, palaces, arenas, and harvests, was built upon an invisible human foundation. The slaves. It is estimated that, in the time of Spartacus, 1 out of every 3 inhabitants of Italy was a slave. They worked in mines and estates, in kitchens and brothels. They had no rights, no names, no families of their own. They were property priced in coins, bought and sold like animals. Wealth was concentrated in the hands of a few, the landowners of vast tracts cultivated by slave labor, while poor free citizens, the plebeians, sank into misery, displaced by the concentration of power and land. Rome, proud of its civic freedom, was an empire of slaves. This social contrast prepared the ground for something unthinkable, a rebellion that would shake the very order of the Roman world. The name of Spartacus still resonates today as a symbol of resistance, but his personal story begins in the shadows of history. Ancient sources such as Plutarch, Florus, and Appian state that he was a native of Thrace, a region corresponding today to southeastern Europe, between Bulgaria and Greece. A soldier, perhaps a mercenary, he was captured and sold as a slave to a lanista, the owner of a gladiator school in Capua, south of Rome. The fate of the gladiators was a bloody spectacle, to fight to the death in the amphitheaters to entertain the public. According to the sources, Spartacus possessed extraordinary physical strength and intelligence. He knew how to fight, but also how to think. Among his companions were 2 Gallic warriors, Crixus and Oenomaios, who would become his allies. The school of Capua was a prison of bodies and wills. The gladiators trained daily, armed with wooden swords, awaiting the day they would enter the arena and die to the sound of applause. But in 73 BC, Spartacus decided to turn training into escape. According to Plutarch, about 78 gladiators managed to escape from the school in Capua using kitchen knives and improvised weapons. They raided carts carrying arms for gladiators and fortified themselves on Mount Vesuvius, still a silent volcano at that time. There, surrounded by small troops sent by the Senate, the fugitives demonstrated skill and discipline. Using ropes made from vine branches and attacking by surprise from the rear, they defeated the Roman forces. It was the first shock. Rome, the invincible empire, had been defeated by a handful of slaves. The initial success attracted hundreds, then thousands. Escaped slaves, indebted peasants, deserters, all saw in Spartacus a chance to start a new life. In a short time, the rebellion ceased to be a band and became an army of men and women seeking freedom. Roman chroniclers, disturbed, called them servi fugitivi, fugitive slaves. But the reality was far greater. It was a social war. The movement grew rapidly, spreading through Campania and Lucania. Spartacus and his lieutenants organized the heterogeneous mass into military units, using tactics learned from the Roman army. There was discipline, strategy, and something even more dangerous, hope. For 2 years, the rebels won victory after victory. They defeated consular troops sent in haste, looted cities, and came to control vast regions of southern Italy. Roman accounts describe a multitude reaching between 70,000 and 100,000 people, an astonishing number for an improvised army. But the objective of Spartacus remains a matter of debate. Some authors claim he wished to flee Italy, march to the Alps, and free his companions so they could return to their homelands. Others believe that, seeing the fragility of Roman power, he even considered marching on Rome itself. Plutarch suggests that Spartacus never had imperial ambitions. He wanted to escape, not to rule. But circumstances turned him into a symbol. And in Rome, symbols always frightened power. The revolt of Spartacus touched the exposed nerve of Roman society. The fear of an uprising of the oppressed. Senators and patricians feared not only physical destruction, they feared the collapse of moral order. If slaves could challenge their masters, what remained of the hierarchy that sustained the Republic? For 2 years, the Senate treated the rebellion as a local problem, a minor disturbance. But successive victories forced Rome to react more seriously. After several humiliating defeats, the Romans entrusted command of the legions to General Marcus Licinius Crassus, the richest man in the Republic, disciplined, brutal, and determined to end the conflict at any cost. Crassus reformed the army, reinstated discipline, and imposed exemplary punishments. According to Plutarch, he even decimated one of his legions, ordering 1 out of every 10 soldiers who had fled battle to be executed. It was a clear message. No Roman would ever again fear slaves. Spartacus, for his part, tried to flee northward. Some groups separated and were annihilated. Others, led by Crixus and Oenomaus, fell into ambushes. When Spartacus finally tried to march to Sicily, hoping to cross the strait and continue the fight from there, he was betrayed by pirates who had promised transport and disappeared with his gold. Isolated in southern Italy and surrounded by Crassus's troops, the rebel army resisted for months. Even when Pompey returned from Hispania, the Senate divided the glory of victory between the two generals, a rivalry that would fuel future civil wars. The final battle took place in 71 BC, on the plains of Lucania. Spartacus, it is said, killed 2 Roman centurions before falling, fighting to the end. His body was never found, and perhaps for that reason he became immortal. Crassus's victory was followed by a spectacle of terror. Around 6,000 prisoners were crucified along the Appian Way, the road connecting Rome to Capua, the same route where the revolt had begun 2 years earlier. Each cross was a warning. The bodies remained hanging for months, rotting under the sun, so that all slaves would know the price of rebellion. The Roman Republic returned to normality. But beneath the silence of the crosses, something had changed forever. Spartacus lost the war, but he defeated oblivion. His rebellion revealed with merciless clarity what Rome had tried to hide, that its glory rested on servitude. No senator, no Roman philosopher dared propose the abolition of slavery. Even the most learned, like Cicero, accepted the system as natural, as part of divine order. But the uprising showed that slaves were not instruments, but people with will, courage, and dignity. From then on, Roman politics feared new revolts. The state intensified control over the provinces, strengthened the legions, and distributed more bread and circuses to keep the masses subdued. Society chose oblivion as a form of survival. And yet the name of Spartacus endured, first as a curse, later as a myth. Better to die standing than to live on your knees. Apocryphal maxim attributed to Spartacus.